Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Sage live from the Kalkine studios and you are watching the last trade show. Let us see how the Australian market performed today. The Australian shares closed lower on Thursday, led by losses in the blue chip stocks, and the market witnessed broad-based selling as resurgence of COVID-19 cases and subsequent curbs in various parts of the country dented the investors' sentiment. Another 24 locally transmitted COVID-19 cases were reported in New South Wales in the 24 hours just gone, while Queensland registered 2 new community cases. In a slight respite, Victoria and WA reported 0 cases. The S&P ASX 200 ended lower by 47.40 points, or 0.65%, to reach 7,265.60, crossing below its 20-day moving average. And earlier today, the index opened flat at 7,313, undermining firm cues from Wall Street, which ended higher overnight. And investors traded cautiously ahead of a highly anticipated US jobs data for indications of how the recovery from the pandemic is faring. And moving on to the sectoral front, 8 of the 11 sectors indices ended in red, and the consumer discretionary sector emerged as the worst performer with 1.22% losses. And some of the other sectors that were trading lower included consumer staples, financials, AREIT, telecom, industrial, energy, healthcare and utilities. However, on the flip side, materials, information technology and telecom stocks were the only gainers, closing marginally higher. Among the individual stocks, gold miner Regis Resources was the top percentage gainer on the ASX, rising 8.7%, and some of the other notable gainers were software firm Nuix, gold miners St Barbara and Silver Lake. On the other hand, the Australian-based mining company Chalice Mining was the top loser on the ASX, falling 5.7%. Metcash, Worley, PointsBets Holdings and Pro Medicus were also among the other top laggards. And on this note, let's now focus on the shares that are in the news today. Shares of PEXA Group rebounded 1.5% to reach $17.39 Australian. After falling over 4% in the opening trade, the stock commenced trading on the ASX today after Australia's leading online property settlements firm successfully raised 1.18 billion Australian dollars via an IPO at an offer price of $17.13 Australian, and this is touted to be Australia's biggest IPO of the year. Let's now take a look at the next news. Coming in from mining and exploration company Australian Rare Earths made a strong debut on the ASX today, with shares surging 93% to 58 cents Australian. The Rare Earth exploration and development firm has raised 12 million Australian dollars at 30 cents per share to become one of the few publicly listed pure clay ionic clay rare earth element companies. And meanwhile, its peer companies Lynas Rare Earths, Ionic Rare Earths were also trading higher, while Australian Strategic Materials was down by 4.5%. Let's move on to the next. The share price of Bank of Queensland was down 1.32% to reach $8.99 Australian, in line with financial index, which reeled under selling pressure, and the lender has completed its acquisition of ME Bank for 1.325 billion Australian dollars, which was the first announced in February. And the acquisition has been fully funded through an equity raising conducted by the lender during the month. As per the announcement, Bank of Queensland and ME Bank will continue to operate as separate authorised deposit-taking institutions in the short term. And now, before we look at the shares that were in the news today, it's time for a short break.
Tune in to get the latest information.
Whether it's about market movements or the currency graph,
sectoral coverage or industry news,
we cover it all on our news segments.
Be on top of the latest news
with Kalkine TV.
Hello, welcome back. Sage here. You're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney, and this is the last show of the day, the last trade. So AGL Energy shares dropped 0.7% to $8.14 Australian, extending the falls for the second day after the company unveiled its demerger plan. And AGL Energy will be renamed Excel Energy and demerge its retailing business, AGL Australia, into a separate ASX listed entity in the fourth quarter of financial year 2022. Excel Energy will operate the coal-fired power plants and wind farms, and AGL Australia will be a multi-product energy retailer. We'll take a look now at the next news coming in from shares of SME-focused fintech company Propel Holdings. Climbed 85.7% to reach 19.5 cents after the company announced a partnership with leading BNPL provider Zipco. The partnership involves launching Zip as its first buy now, pay later product on the Propel platform. With this, PHL customers will now be able to offer their end customers a pay-in instalments facility for the products and services they provide. In addition, it will enable PHL customers to significantly improve their cash flows with guaranteed upfront payments. Let's move on to the next news now, coming in from Neo Metals. And the Project Development and Mineral Exploration Company announced its intentions to demerge its Mount Edwards Nickel Project, and NMT said that Mount Edwards Nickel Project would be demerged into a new company, Widgie Nickel Limited, which is expected to be listed on the ASX by the fourth quarter in 2021. The eligible Neo Metals shareholders will receive new Widgie Nickel shares at no cost on a pro rata basis in proportion to their existing Neo Metals shareholdings. NMT will do this via a capital reduction and in specie distribution, subject to shareholder approval. Following the announcement, Neo Metals shares rose over 6% to 51 cents Australian. Let's look at the next company. Shares of Lendlease Group declined as much as 4.65% to reach $10.93 Australian after the property and infrastructure development company issued a profit warning for the financial year of 21. The company expects statutory profit in the range of 200 to 320 million Australian dollars after tax, as challenging operating conditions associated with COVID-19 continue to affect its operations globally. Taking a look at the next, Worley shares declined as much as 2.9% to $11.60 Australian, despite the Australian Engineering Service provider winning 2 wind farm contracts from Pacific Hydro's subsidiary Energy Pacific, VIC Pty Ltd, and the contracts include operation and maintenance of the Pacific Hydro's wind farms in Victoria, Australia, as per the agreement. And Worley will provide the full asset management operations and maintenance services across a fleet of 196 wind turbines and the associated balance of plant, with a total generating capacity of 360 MW. Let's move on again. Shares of Auckland Airport fell over 1% to reach $6.70 Australian after the New Zealand-based airline hub kept its earnings guidance unchanged for the financial year 2021. The company cautioned that ongoing uncertainty around the international travel may impact passenger numbers and related revenue for the remainder of the calendar year. And now, before we look at the shares that were in the news today, it's time for another short break.
Tune in to get the latest information,
Whether it's about market movements or the currency graph,
sectoral coverage or industry news.
we cover it all on our news segments.
Be on top of the latest news
With Kalkine TV.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Sage and you are watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney, and this is the last show of the day, the last trade. Gold miner Predictive Discovery saw its shares falling over 6%. Down to 7.7 cents after the company realised updates on drilling at Puzzle North. The miner announced that 4 diamond drill holes from the Guinea-based Bunkin project have intersected high-grade gold mineralisation, as per Managing Director Paul Roberts. The new results have further confirmed the continuity and grade of its NE Bunkin and Bunkin Creek gold deposits. The intersection recently discovered is an absolute standout for PDI and is better than any intercept obtained so far in the Bunkin deposit. And next up, the share price of Scroll Group. The education sector, HR software as a service provider, climbed 25% to 1.5 cents after the company released its sale and marketing updates today. Let's look at the next news. Pharma major Mesoblast gained as much as 2% to reach $2.02 Australian after providing an update on the program for chronic low back pain due to degenerative disc disease. And the company, also listed in the US, has requested a meeting with the US Food and Drug Administration to seek approval for the drug following its latest phase of trials. Moving on again, Cooper Energy share price dropped as much as 2.9% to 25.2 cents Australian after the company downgraded its production guidance for the financial year 21, citing interruptions to operations during May and June. The full year production guidance has been revised to 2.6 million barrels of oil equivalent, while sale forecast has been lowered to 3 million barrels of oil equivalent. And finally, in our update today, shares of Capricorn Metals rose 0.5% to $1.91 Australian after the company achieved its first gold pour from the Karlawinda Gold Project. And as per the company, gold bars weighing 12 kilograms poured in the first smelt on the site. And now, after the newsmakers, we'll move on to the Asian markets, which were trading mostly lower. The Asian markets witnessed selling pressures. And we'll talk more about that after this short break. Property by Kalkine. Looking for a dream home? Well, that may sound easy, but it isn't. And from looking for a property that is the right fit for you in terms of cost and other factors, to zeroing down on the right mortgage plan, there are various aspects to consider. And for the latest lowdown on the property market, tune in on Kalkine TV with me, Sage. I will give the latest updates on the property market as well as real estate stocks to help you make the right decision. Keep watching Property with Kalkine. Welcome back, viewers. Sage here. You're watching the last trade, and we were just about to discuss the Asian markets, which were trading mostly lower. Asian markets witnessed selling pressures on Thursday as mixed macro data and resurgence of COVID-19 cases in the region dented the market sentiment. And Japan's Nikkei was down 0.5% even as business confidence improved to 2.5-year highs in the second quarter, a central bank survey showed. The rise in business confidence indicates that global demand was helping the economy emerge from the coronavirus crisis, and China's Shanghai Composite was trading 0.07% lower after the data showed that the country's factory activity expanded at a slower pace in June. The Caixin Market Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index fell to 51.3 last month from May's 52. And meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hang Seng was closed on the eve of the anniversary of the handover of the former British colony to Beijing. India's BSE Sensex was down 0.2%, while New Zealand's benchmark S&P NZX 50 was trading flat with positive bias. In the overnight trade, US stocks ended mostly higher, with the Dow Jones rising 0.6% and the S&P 500 adding 0.13%. The Nasdaq Composite Index dropped 0.17%. Thanks so much for joining us on our live updates today, and that is all for now in the last trade. With our existing operations in Australia, New Zealand, UK and Canada, Kalkine Media has now launched its operations in the US markets. And every day in our first show, the Global Market Updates, you can get the latest and important news of the US and UK markets from the overnight happenings. So on that note, I will see you tomorrow as close as possible to 10 a.m. live from Sydney. Sage signing off.